All right, welcome to the Daily Dose. Douglas V. Gibbs here, Mr. Constitution. And recently, Mr. Joseph Biden, has made a interesting, had an interesting thing to say about Second Amendment. And let's go ahead and read what he had to say. So, I've been at this a long time. There are things we know that work to reduce gun violence and violent crime, and things we know don't work. Biden said background checks for purchasing a firearm are important. A ban on assault weapons and high capacity magazines. No one needs to have a weapon that fires 30, 40, 50, or even up to 100 rounds unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests. And community policing and programs that keep neighborhoods safe and folks out of trouble. Biden went on to say that the Second Amendment has always placed limits on gun ownership. From the day it was passed, it limited the type of people that could own a gun and what type of gun you could own, he said. You couldn't own a cannon. If you think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. Garland, who is the Attorney General, said the Department of Justice has already issued rules to address ghost guns and rules to make pistols with certain stabilizing braces subject to the same regulations as short barrel rifles. So now, let's talk about these words for a minute. First of all, and let me say this. When it comes to the Second Amendment, first of all, there were no federal gun laws restricting the ownership of guns until the 30s when, I think it was 33, when the federal government decided to ban machine guns because it was the weapon of choice by the gangsters during Prohibition. Secondly, the purpose of the Second Amendment is to keep the people armed so that we can keep the government honest. So the purpose of the right to keep and bear arms is so that the people can defend against government tyranny, meaning that we should have firepower equal to or greater than that of the government to defend ourselves from the government. I was in a conversation about the Second Amendment about 2 months ago with an individual, though, and he says, so Doug, shall not be infringed means what? And I said, well, that the federal government can make no gun laws, no laws regarding guns, period, firearms, anything. He says, so then you say that a person should be able to have a nuclear weapon. I said, no, I didn't say that. I said the federal government can't make a law regarding that. His question, his response, and what Biden says, first of all, puts the federal government there at the top, that the federal government has all authority and nobody else can do anything. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. It means that the federal government can make no gun law whatsoever. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be gun laws. States are authorized to make gun laws if necessary. Such as, I appreciate the fact that there's a gun law in place that doesn't allow my 8-year-old granddaughter to go to the gun store and go buy a gun. States are allowed to make gun laws. If the states get out of control, like states like California has, then the people need to get it back under control. California's state constitution, by the way, is the only state constitution in the entire country that has no gun protection language in the Constitution. Now, that explains a lot, doesn't it? All right, so now let's get back to what Biden had to say. So he says that you don't need weapons that fire 30, 40, 50, or even up to 100 rounds unless you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests. Well, first of all, if you're not a really good shot, you probably will need that many rounds just to catch your deer. Secondly, the point of the Second Amendment, high-capacity magazines, whatever, is not because we're worried about the deer rising up against us. But the comment that the Second Amendment has always placed limits on gun ownership, the Second Amendment does the exact opposite. It warns the government not to place limits on gun ownership. And if you go to the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, the part in the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Bear arms, if you look up the word bear in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, it will give you the example of like a coat, like a gun under one's coat. So in other words, bear means concealed carry. So the more than now 20 states that have constitutional carry laws where you don't need a permit to carry, those are very constitutional because that was the point of the Second Amendment. Next he says you couldn't own a cannon. Yes, you could, and some people did. In fact, I have a friend who owns 4 cannons. If you think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. Is that a threat, sir? Or are you saying that you want to use F-15s and nuclear weapons against the people? First of all. Second of all, that's pretty rich coming from a government who says that a bunch of people who, by the way, none of which were found to be armed, threatened the government on January 6th. So if you're afraid of a bunch of unarmed people on January 6th, but yet you're boasting that you can use F-15s and nuclear weapons against us now? Now, that all said, I want to read you a few things. First of all, I have this book here. It's called The Founders Constitution. And in it, regarding the Second Amendment, it tells me that in the Pennsylvania Constitution of 1776, Declaration of Rights, Article 13. So this is Pennsylvania's Constitution, 1776, that the people have a right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state, and as standing armies in the time of peace are dangerous to liberty. They ought not to be kept up, and that the military should be kept under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. So, in other words, once again, and think about what I just said here, it says that the military, the government, should be kept under strict subordination and governed by the civil power. In other words, you're the hired help. We're the boss, not you. We control you. We dictate to you. You don't rule over us. You serve us. Then on the 17th and the 20th of August in 1789, and this particular piece comes from the 17th of August of 1789, while discussing the new Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment, Mr. Gary, Elgin Gary, said the following: "What, sir, is the use of a militia? It is to prevent the establishment of a standing army, the bane of liberty. Now, it must be evident that under this provision, together with their other powers, Congress could take measures with respect to a militia as to make a standing army necessary. Whenever governments mean to invade the rights and liberties of the people, they always attempt to destroy the militia in order to raise an army upon their ruins. This was actually done by Great Britain at the commencement of the late Revolution. They used every means in their power to prevent the establishment of an effective militia to the eastward. The Assembly of Massachusetts, seeing the rapid progress that administration were making to divest them of their inherent privileges, endeavored to counteract them by the organization of the militia, but they were always defeated by the influence of the crown." Now, that said, after the Second Amendment, George Mason was asked, but what is the militia? Who is the militia? And George Mason responded, the whole of the people and a few politicians. Even back then, they didn't trust all the politicians, only a few of them. The whole of the people. So a well-regulated militia, which is a militia that is in good order. Matter of fact, there's another quote by William Rawle in 1829 that explains that a well-regulated militia is not a disorderly militia, for a disorderly militia is disgraceful to itself and dangerous not to the enemy but to its own country. So a well-regulated militia is a militia that's in good order. Then to continue with the right to keep and bear arms, then we got St. George Tucker from Blackstone's Commentaries in 1803. The right of self-defense is the first law of nature. In most governments, it has been the study of rulers to confine this right within the narrowest limits possible. Wherever standing armies are kept up and the right of the people to keep and bear arms is, under any color or pretext whatsoever, prohibited, liberty, if not already annihilated, is on the brink of destruction. In England, the people have been disarmed, generally under the specious pretext of preserving the game, a never-failing lure to bring over the landed aristocracy to support any measure under that mask, though calculated for very different purposes. True it is, their Bill of Rights seems to, at first view, to counteract this policy, but the right of bearing arms is confined to Protestants, and the words suitable to their condition and degree have been interpreted to authorize a prohibition of keeping a gun or other engine for the destruction of game to any farmer or inferior tradesman or other person not qualified to kill game, so that not one man in 500 can keep a gun in his house without being subject to a penalty. This was a warning. Now, that's enough of that commentary. What about the founders themselves? What did they have to say about the Second Amendment? Why was it so important? Why is Biden so much in error regarding this? George Washington, in his first annual address to both the House and Congress, January 8th, 1790, a free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined. Thomas Jefferson, Virginia Constitution, Draft 1, 1776. No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. Thomas Jefferson, letter to James Madison, January 30, 1787. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. What country, Thomas Jefferson, letter to James Madison, December 20th, 1787. What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Thomas Jefferson, Commonplace Book, quoting 18th century criminologist Cesar Basiria, 1774, 1776. The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature. They disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. Thomas Jefferson, letter to Peter Carr, August 19th, 1785. A strong body makes the mind strong. As to the species of exercises, I advise the gun. While this gives moderate exercise to the body, it gives boldness, enterprise, and independence to the mind. Games played with the ball and others of that nature are too violent for the body and stamp no character on the mind. Let your gun, therefore, be your constant companion of your walks. All right, Thomas Jefferson, letter to John Cartwright, 5th of June, 1824. The Constitution of most of our states and of the United States assert that all power is inherent in the people, that they may exercise it by themselves, that it is their right and duty to be at all times armed. Thomas Jefferson, letter to William Johnson, 12 June, 1823. On every occasion of constitutional interpretation, let us carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted. Recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying to force that meaning may be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, instead let us conform to the probable one in which it was passed. Benjamin Franklin, Historical Review of Pennsylvania, 1759. They that can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. George Mason, referencing advice given to the British Parliament by Pennsylvania Governor Sir William Keith. The debates in the several state constitutions on the adoption of the federal constitution, June 14, 1788. To disarm the people is the most effective way to enslave them. Noah Webster, An Examination of the Leading Principles of the Federal Constitution, October 10, 1787. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every country in Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops. James Madison, Federalist number 46, January 29th, 1788. Besides the advantage of being armed, which the Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, the existence of subordinate governments to which the people are attached and by which the militia officers are appointed forms a barrier against the enterprises of ambition, more insurmountable than any which a simple government of any form can admit of. James Madison, The Annals of Congress, 434, June 8th, 1789. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people trained to arms, is the best and most natural defense of a free country. James Madison, Federalist 46, January 29th, 1788. The ultimate authority, wherever the derivative may be found, resides in the people alone. Richard Henry Lee, Federal Farmer, number 18, January 25, 1788. A militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves and include, according to the past and general usage of the states, all men capable of bearing arms. To preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Patrick Henry, Speech to the Virginia Ratifying Convention, June 5, 1778. Guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are ruined. The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able might have a gun. Now, I've got about 4 more pages of similar quotes. I'm not going to continue because you get the point. A well-regulated militia. A well-regulated militia being the whole of the people and a few politicians, as indicated by George Mason, being necessary to the security of a free state. In order for the state of Virginia, the state of California, the state of New York, the state of Kansas, in order for it to remain free, it is necessary. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Mr. Biden, shall not be infringed is not a limitation on the people. It is a limitation on the government. The Second Amendment is a limitation on the government saying you shall not infringe on our right to keep and bear arms, and the purpose is to protect us against you. Sure, we don't have F-15s and nuclear weapons. But boy, it sure made you nervous when a bunch of us unarmed were there on January 6th. I believe, sir, that you want to ban guns. You want to have what you call gun control because you fear the people being armed because they will take away your power. And that is the point of the Second Amendment. Thank you for watching. United We Stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America. And God bless you. Visit my websites, DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. If you want to donate to the cause, there's donate buttons there. Be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed to this channel. These videos show up on YouTube and BitChute. So if you want to go to bitchute.com/DouglasVGibbs, youtube.com/DouglasVGibbs, and there's another Constitution Study channel also at YouTube. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.